Hello, my name is Tadej Sakelšek, international master from Slovenia. For you, I will be covering every week the best game, and we will start today with a game of which has been played between Liren and Vincent Kaymer from the Grenke chess classics. The game was pretty interesting from opening till the very end, and I suggest to delve into it. Liren, the current world champion, started the game with d4. Vincent Kaymer, German prodigy, went for so-called Nimzo Indian defense, where black's idea is to cover central two squares or control central two squares by the help of pieces. Usually this is how black is achieving that. So white has a lot of different options here. There are two main moves like e3, which is called a Rubinstein variation, or white could go for queen c2, which is also a very good and solid line for white. However, in the game, Liren decided to go for knight f3. Vincent has some experience with this variation already, as a couple of weeks ago he faced Indian Grandmaster Gukesh in Prague Chess Festival, where his opponent also played move knight f3. He in both games answered with d6, queen c2 castles, and here Liren decided to go for move bishop d2, which is the main line in this position. In the other game, Gukesh went for bishop g5, and there were pretty intense fight between two players. Okay, Ding's choice is more or less logical, as he unpinned himself. Black went for b6 now, and e4. Somehow it looks like that white is having a very solid center, but it's not really stable, as black can immediately attack the one by playing c5. White decided to go for a3. Perhaps he could play d5, but here white's problem is that he did not castle yet, and for example, after e takes d5, it's met by rook e8 check. Probably black is the one who is already better. Therefore, white should be capturing by the c pawn. And after, let's say, bishop c3, bishop takes e3, there is typical tactics, knight e4. As queen e4, it's met by rook e8, and probably here black is the one already better. White doesn't lose the queen because it can play knight e5 and close the file temporarily. But after move knight d7, let's say bishop d3, g6, black will probably be the one who is better. However, it is possible continuation indeed. But a3 was played in the game. Bishop takes. It is important to mention that Nimzo Indian is an opening in which black is more or less happy to give his dark color bishop for white's knight on c3, and then establish so-called dark color strategy. Black will be placing his pawns on dark colors. So he started to implement this strategy immediately. So he took, then he played e5, and maybe here it's already a critical position in which white decided to go for knight f5. Objectively, I believe this is the most challenging variation for black, because you see white immediately attacks this backward pawn on d6. But one must understand for which color or for which player the trade of this light color bishop for the knight it's in favor. Keymer decided that this is in his favor, so he took on f5. He takes f5. You see, now we have pair of bishops versus pair of knights, and it is quite interesting position which players has reached out of the opening. For pair of bishops, it's important that the side has an open diagonals. Here we can see that there are no open diagonals, apart of maybe this h1, a8, which is basically temporarily empty. The bishop on c3, it's pretty well restricted by pawns on d6 and e5. So for the time being, it is difficult for white to say that he has any kind of advantage because of pair of bishops. But let us see how the game has continued. Black played knight c6, long castle. This is a very logical decision indeed. Rook c8 and queen to d3. This is materialistical approach. Okay, white is immediately going to attack the backward d6 pawn, but perhaps he had some other ideas connected with the attack on the king side. I don't know how strong move like rook g1 is here in order to prepare move g4, g5, but it's definitely at least worth thinking about it. Probably here black can play a move like d5, you know, and would white capture on d5, then knight d4, it's just a winning move because black is exploiting this spin. So perhaps this is something what Vincent Kaymer and his coach Peter Leko probably have analyzed in some of their training camps. So okay, Ding played move queen to d3, queen to c7 was played, and perhaps here taking the pawn on d6 was not the correct decision by the world champion. World champion, it's having some bad period of couple of tournaments, you know, which he really played badly, and he continues, let's say, in this style. So somehow he doesn't find yet the same level that he was already. I mean, which we already use from him to play, but okay, this is life, and he will have to find a way to go out of this bad period. Yes. Instead of queen d6, perhaps move like g4 was very interesting here. If black accepts the sacrifice, then rook g1, and if knight f6, then queen will go to g3. You see here now white is the one that has developed the initiative by opening the g file, and probably this was a better decision compared to what has happened in the game. Ding took, and the game has transferred into an endgame. White has an extra pawn, but black's compensation is more or less clear. It has quite a lot of activity, and after knight e4, rook d7 was played. It is difficult to suggest any other more logical move than rook d7. And here an interesting decision again by Vincent. He decided to take knight c3. He had an option to take the pawn on f2, of course, and after rook g1 to play rook f to d8. But you know, even though an engine like black's position, I would say that the variation that Vincent chose, so knight c3, from practical point of view looks a little bit more logical to me, because look at those white pawns. You see, all of them are weak. You know, white has two double pawns, and the light colored bishop, which is extremely bad piece. And from practical point of view, to play this position as white is not very nice. Yeah. So black played rook f to d8, decided to trade the only active white's piece. Rook d8 perhaps was not the only possible move here, as white could go for rook b7, and perhaps this move would be more logical in view of keeping an only active piece on the board. Now it's not so clear to understand how does black continue to develop the initiative. Perhaps move like knight a5, it's possible, but then rook a7, knight c4, bishop takes, rook takes, and after, let's say, move like rook d1, I don't see white risking too much here. In contrary, probably black is the one that must be accurate in order to hold a draw. So rook d8 was indeed pretty strange decision by Dink, and now he really found himself in I would say difficult situation. Some normal moves has been played. White brought his rook to an open file. Black brought his king into the center. We always must bring the king into the center in the endgame, of course. And after rook d5, now f6 was played. King c2, and now the knight is occupying a fantastic outpost on the c5 square. You see, this is now we can now clearly see the difference between this powerful knight on c5 and poorly placed white's bishop. King b4, rook d8. Black, if he wants to seriously playing for a win, must be trading rooks. After a4, knight e4. Probably rook e4 was not the best decision, but even here, you know, after king d6, let's say c4, you see black has total control over the dark squares, and as white has all his pawns placed on the light colors, this bishop on e2 is completely restricted. However, I don't really see how could black play for a win in this position. Yeah. So what he did was to play knight e4, and after f3, a5 check, exploiting the moment that white king cannot get activated by king b5, as after knight c3, black is winning at least a piece here. So white is completely lost, therefore king b3 must be played. Now knight c5 back, and here now rook d6 was played. Now rook d5 was probably more logical than earlier, because here now after c4 you see the king cannot go to b5, and after e4 perhaps f takes, let's say f takes, knight takes, You see, we have this pawn extremely weak. The king will go to d6, knight probably to... the king will go to c5, the knight to d6, and all those pawns here are going to cause white a lot of problems. However, rook d6 was played in the game. Now bishop d1, knight a6, bishop c2, knight c7. So Keymer decided that this type of endgame that has that they have reached now, it's more favorable for him. Okay, I can understand his decision, but you see this pawn on c3, it is being pretty good place because it controls important dark colors. After bishop e4, knight e6, g4 came as a huge surprise. You know, here this is one of the moves, or maybe the key move why I decided to analyze the game for you. In the end game, we should always be very careful how to place pawns. We know so-called Capablanca's rule, which talk about the placement of pawns when one of the side has a bishop. And if we have a bishop of one color, we try to do everything in our power to place the bishop, to place pawns on opposite color of our bishops. This is very logical because we must be controlling other color. So here you see white has permanently weakened f4 square. So g4, it's really a move that from positional point of view it's wrong. I don't understand really why Ding decided to go for move g4. Was this simply did he make some mistake in calculation, or he simply didn't believe that there is an option for black to win the game? I don't know, but still move g4, it's very strange indeed. Instead, he had to just wait, to play something like king a2 and move like knight c5, just go back to a3, and after king c7 or king e7, white is basically not in Zugzwang because he can go bishop c2 and just keep on waiting. Now let's see how did Keymer punish this bad move g4. He played knight c5, h4, another strange decision, but okay, if you say A, then you usually say also B, and now h5. This is wonderful stuff. Black is sacrificing yet another pawn, but look at now those really ugly pawns. Those pawns are not something we we liked seeing on the board, but sometimes we have to live with it. Now king e7, and white is basically in Zugzwang because the king cannot move anywhere. He then loses the pawn on a4, meaning that white must be playing with the bishop. So he went for bishop c6, and now, of course, e4, sacrificing a third pawn. Why would white do that? I mean, why would black do that? Yeah, the reason is simple, because he's just looking for a way how to activate his own king. White capture on e4. Well, to take with the bishop wouldn't make any difference because I just go probably king to d6, and if you go somewhere to bishop to c2, then king e5, and after king b2, king f4. Maybe it is better for white compared to the variation that was played in the game, but still it looks extremely unpleasant for white, and objectively I would say this position it's lost. Let us see the game. F takes c4 was played, now king d6, bishop d5, king e5, bishop c6, and now the game has been transferred into the pawn ending by knight d4. Usually we are not going into a pawn ending with less material, but okay, here we have completely different situation because white pawns are being so bad. Black king is way more active than white's, and well, if Ding would decide to resign in this position, I would not be surprised. But of course, he continued fighting. He played king b3, now king f5, c5, b takes, king c4. You see, so what we could see from this game also, that both players has used pawn sacrifice in order to activate their own king. This is quite standard and logical decision or technique in the endgame. And now a very unfortunate move happened. Black has of course two options where to go with the king, either to go to e4, either to go to g4. And I would suggest my audience to pause the video here and try to calculate the variation and only then to continue watching the video. Vincent Kaymer played somehow logical move king e4, but it was unfortunate mistake because now white was able to escape. Let us see the variation. King c5. Now both pawns are running towards the queen. You see, black has promoted first. The white still did not promote. The point that white is still alive is that this square is taken away, so the queen cannot come closer somehow in order to prevent white pawn from queening. So what did he do? That in this position he repeat couple of times and then decided to go to pawn ending. He took queen a4, c8, and the game has ended in perpetual after a couple of moves. So it was study-like escape by Liren, but he cannot be very happy with the game. I believe that also Keymer was not happy, not with the quality of his game, but with the result, because he was completely winning. I mean, he was dominating from opening on, but this move, unfortunate move, king e4, in this position, spoiled the advantage. Let us see the winning continuation, which is king g4. And what is the difference? When now both pawns are running towards the promotion, say queen and c7. Now black can play something like queen f8, and after king b7, simply start capturing pawns here. See, now the black king would be much closer to the pawns, and as in pawn ending each tempo is decisive, here black would simply be winning. Let us see why. After c8, we trade queens, we do take the pawn on h5, and here we can see that black is way faster, and after a6 he simply plays something like queen a7 and win the game easily. Okay, that will be all for today. Thank you very much for watching me, and we see each other next week.